Okay, so I was just sitting here talking to myself because I've realized I wouldn't be most likely your traditional speaker. I couldn't just cut a sermon into an hour or 20 minutes or half an hour. Why? Because once I get started, the Holy Spirit inside of me, the Spirit of Tracilyn, of God, of something, takes over. God does acknowledge to us in the Holy Bible that we shouldn't be worried. Trust God and know that the Holy Spirit will speak on our behalf. In other words, God really, truly wants to use us for loving purposes. Okay, not to make other people's life more miserable, not that we know of. It may just come along with other people who are attempting to be a vessel for love in explaining, talking. One thing I've realized is that once I get going, I feels like I could speak sometimes for eternity until I fall asleep. I spend a lot of time, or I invest a lot of time in speaking to myself. A lot of people in America would assume that this means that you're crazy. And can I tell you, I'm convinced that it's what channels through us words, like fuel in a car. Words enter into our head, and when we engage and act upon them, new words come to keep us moving, to get things to form in our life, and to be magnified. Relationships. Speaking these words is what speaks the life, the physical life that we end up entering into somehow, or it forming around us. Me ending up in Dayton, Ohio, in all honesty, is the result of mental peak of seriously not knowing what else to do. With all the information I gathered throughout my life, I literally did not know what to do, and that's why I was suicidal. Once I became suicidal, the people who have this means of devices or whatever they do get into your head because their ultimate goal is to destroy. In other words, it's almost like a war where they're literally taking out masses of people's lives, but they do it more secretly, privately, and they write things off throughout what we call the system as being a justified reasoning as to the cause of their disappearance or an occurrence that happened in a human's life. We're in mental warfare, and if teachers would get off this high horse of spiritual warfare and get into the root as to what it's all about, it's psychological. You ever hear of Scientology? I'm not here to say whether or not that has anything to do with it. But I am here to tell you that according to Scripture, every word is what matters. And words is what's powerful. Word is what formed everything. And let me tell you, when you're in a court and the judge rules in favor or not in favor and says court dismissed, I don't ever remember him giving a scientific breakdown as to exactly how or why that's happening. But the words, very clearly in the paper, have given both parties a settlement. One party or both parties may have some agreement and some disagreement. It's all about words, in my opinion. Words with music, wow, it's like the railroad bed. Music is like the railroad bed, and the words are like the train. Yeah, how glorious. Knowing what I know now, I'm convinced that I could have been the greatest worship leader ever in American history and abroad. And many worship leaders might not like that Tracilyn says that. I'm convinced. And I'm convinced that it could be anybody else too. It might be somebody out there nowadays. We can acknowledge that they might be 3, 4, 5 years old. God can use anyone God chooses to. Always remember, God is not man, and God is not a group of men. But God is every single word. All words are God. influenced by words. May it not be with a direct approach in what you should be doing with your body. Never be a slave to another man's heart. That's generalized, by the way. Any other human. Don't be a slave to their heart and their passion. Okay? This is what kind of started to happen for me a little bit because I was in a helpless situation. I didn't know what to do. I came out by the generosity of an invitation with promises that were broken for various reasons. But let me tell you, nothing was in writing, unless I have the emails to prove it. But our words, maybe from both parties, it's never just one, our words were not married and joined together to keep a commitment. And when that happens, and it's not in writing, you can't verify it. You can't show the other party and show yourself. You can't show the judge or lawyers. And this is why people write words in visual form on a piece of paper. They sign it and they date it. If you really mean what you say, why won't you put it in writing? Well, when you're desperate, like I was, you don't have any say in people putting anything in writing. You're living by the grace. And people say they do things, and anything can happen from either party. And that same person can say, now go away. In fact, a famous saying was, don't go away mad, just go away. That was said to me once or twice, maybe more than 2 handfuls. Sometimes in humor and sometimes in certainty. Here's the thing. With that being said, when I came out here, we were thinking of, or it was a thought from the other party to start ProRx, which was a place to help people get their prescription medication. Now, I was always a firm believer, please don't get upset if I say this, or when I say it, that we don't need prescriptions in many areas like we've been tricked and fooled into. That most of the pills are actually formulated to counteract a lot of the healthiness within the human race and will cause purposely a whole lot of other problems. I realized this when I was taking a lot of medication for my major depression, that I would have serious sore outbreaks in my mouth, and the way that the medication actually increased or made my symptoms worse. Okay? Which is pretty much the same language, isn't it? What do you think? God. Many forms of God sounds exactly, or may be perceived as similarities, right? Almost like twins with different names. Twins, what is that? Not identical twins, it's what twins? Write it in the comment box. Now here's the thing. The last thing I wanted to do was be self-employed. Alright, I was trying to get away from that. That's why I was trying to get work with somebody else. I already realized that the music business, for instance, is filled with a lot of shallow people, right, who want all the glory. And they have a bitter spirit of, I went through all that I went through, and I made my relationships. To hell with you, Tracilyn. At the time, my name was Todd. I understand. I get it, Mr. on a high horse. But guess what? All it took was unition with somebody that was kind-hearted. And literally I would have given my entire existence to seeing through, because I'm a believer in, there used to be a Bon Jovi song called Blood on Blood. That was my heartbeat for a long time, that I would like to connect with other people that feel similar to that song. Because it reminded me of moments of my very, very best friends that I loved very much. And I also lost connection with because they don't understand what I've come to acknowledge. That we're transitional existences. There is no male or female. In reality, identity can change at any given time. That's why it's careful of us to be mindful, you know? I really love and embrace female, but in a situation I have to become very masculine, I can do that too. I don't like that I have to, you know? I don't. So, in the world, if you want to live, and I do. See, I was not suicidal before. It was a meditational, but I believe program that's inside many Americans. Do you feel extremely high levels of suicide? I want to die. I wish I was dead. This life sucks. I can't stand living. Should I write down a whole list of them? Can I tell you? It's very possible that this stuff is inflicted upon you by outside forces, people who have technology and run a software program via satellite, and it just keeps on spinning around inside your head, while your true inner thoughts are trying to stay alive for life. They're the thoughts that are giving you reasoning to keep on going. Be aware that not every thought inside your head is yours. It could be an intruder, an invader. It could be somebody in show business who has access to computer technology, who wants to take things from you, who wants to live vicariously through you, who wants to use you as a resource for their own personal reasonings. Imagine that. Well, when ProRx, it was acknowledged, and here I go again sitting down in front of the computer. It was one thing I'm trying to get away from is office work. I'm really ready to start living now, okay? I have a body. I want to live. I want to have fun. I cannot adapt or surrender to an unhealthy, in my perception, state of existence. I'm still that little child. In fact, I've been diagnosed with a childlike mentality. I still love the same things I did when I was very young in a worldly sense. In other words, I never grew up. I'm still very young. I'm still very heartfelt. The things that I was once passionate about, I would feel ashamed of myself if it weren't true today that I'm still the same way. Do you understand? If I once loved riding bike, then why don't I love it now? If I once loved to skateboard, then why don't I have a skateboard today? Why did I ever throw it away? If I used to love to go roller skating backwards, then why aren't I doing it today? If I used to love going dancing with friends, then why don't I go dancing and make new friends? Do I need to go on? Originally, I started off wanting to be a guitar player. I went through a lot, and I surrendered to my own truth. I dug myself mentally. I am a recording artist. I don't sing and dance like people that are on television that you see. God has set me free from that. Not to mention, I cover a lot of areas in life in general that people don't all go through. Sometimes people have the opportunity to focus on a few things rather than all things. And let me tell you, there are people who protect those people, not their image. They protect those people for their reasonings. And if you found out the details, most likely you would find out there is a lot of selfishness and greed, not in the people here, in general, as to how and why that is. And for instance, Sammy Hagar, we'll use that since he wanted to say the best songwriters live in Nashville. Why do I still hear Sammy Hagar on the radio today when I heard him on the radio when I was in junior high school or high school? All right, I'm a singer-songwriter. I'll tell you that I'm convinced I am not from Nashville. I visited Nashville and I love it, but I'm a far greater songwriter than Sammy Hagar. I'm convinced. I would also tell you that in my opinion, I'm better looking than Sammy Hagar. My physique, my build, I'm statuette. I'm convinced that I'm anointed by the Christ, the living King, inside of me. I don't know who Sammy credits. Who does he credit? I credit Jesus and my love for the Holy Bible. He may appear more talented to others who fell in agreement that that's an idea of talent. But I'm here to tell you he's another life form, and God loves him like God loves me. The difference is, can we take a calculator and add up all the assets that Sammy Hagar and his business, musical endeavors, have accumulated since I was in high school? Could we do that, please? And how about if I accumulate today what I have in my possession since being in high school. Do you know every time a song gets played on the radio, a video gets played on television, in rotation, the songwriters and the publishers and abroad benefit for that in every way you can imagine. Now, why would radio, worldwide distribution companies, television promote Sammy Hagar and not Tracilyn? That's a good question, isn't it? You see, I met many people that I would say, now that's somebody who's way more talented than a lot of people I saw on television and heard on the radio. Why are they being promoted on the radio, but these people are not? What's not right here? And why should a select few people, like people I liked when I was a child, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, why should Britney Spears? Why should all of these people that I also admired their work, by the way, very greatly, just like any other American that appreciated them, I did too. But hold on a minute. Let's calculate the assets that they have today. Why are they more worthy of this luxurious life, but yet, why don't we do this? Why don't we walk onto Bon Jovi's property and calculate all the assets on his property alone? And then ask him if he'll fly us in his personal jet does he have? Or does he have access to one? We can fly to LA to visit Richie, and then we can all go out and calculate the assets of the people lying on the beach. And we can interview them, the ones infested with lice. We can interview them that are hungry, by the way. Lonely, lost, ripped up clothing, right? Haven't shaved for days, have you? Weeks, months, some of them would tell you. And we can speak to them and ask them, can we calculate your assets today? Especially the ones who are recording artists or entertainers that have been led out to Los Angeles with hopes and dreams. Now, when we do this, why don't we subtract the difference and let us ask by interviews why Bon Jovi is worthy of more than these people laying on a beach? Why is Sammy Hagar, Britney Spears, Taylor Swift, Miley Cyrus, are you kidding me? The lady who didn't even wear a diaper until Tracilyn did, because Tracilyn was called into a children's rock and roll ministry. Tracilyn learned, and you can learn too, that if you have rarities of truth from within and you start to fulfill your heart's desires, many people, ask John, tell him it's a nice car he had for a stage prop, will start using you as a resource for ideas in their personal life endeavors. And then you will be asking yourself, why did I ever buy one of your cassettes? Why did I want more of your music so bad during my times of being poor that I was willing to shoplift at Boscov's? What an idiot I was. Yes, what an idiot I was. And maybe what an idiot I am today. Because most people in show business would not want to hear me say this message. And I don't care. Because I almost died several times. And I lost everything. And if any one of them that I reached out to with my CD, reaching out because I needed assistance, I was suffering what they call burnout. I was growing tired. I'm doing every area by myself. I am what they consider to be stuck on a level of trying to stay alive and afloat. Will somebody please be kind to me? Why should Tracilyn make, I don't know, anywhere from $175 to $350 on average for a 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6 hour show at times? Tracilyn's closing down the bars, but people like Bon Jovi, people like these other rock and Nickelback, is it? Oh, please. Now we have everybody's a Nickelback. Why should we have tickets? Did you ever add up the prices for their tickets in one show? How much do you think they actually get of that percentage of each of those tickets that are being sold? Realistically, people wake up and start realizing Tracilyn is telling you from Dayton, Ohio, and I would say it to Bon Jovi's face today, you're not worth it, whatever you're charging these people. Meaning, there is serious needs in our country, and there are also other people that I can only imagine, many people, who have been used as resources by people like him, and many people who lost their lives trying to stay alive and stay afloat. Not because of him specifically, but because of people in the music industry that keep on shunning for their own reasoning. In other words, they formed a pack and they consider themselves to be family. They stick to each other while they have access to electronic satellite means, right? They partner up with people who literally invade the privacy of other recording artists, like transsexual females that in this time started to become very public. They use them as resources so they can connect with the human race and navigate their way of thinking and receive all the glory for it. That includes finances. Why would we, people, voluntarily support people like that, who would not give us the time of day? And if they do, they're probably putting on a display, because what we all desire within ourselves is to fulfill our own heart's desires and maximize our fullest potential here on earth, right? And God has instilled it inside of us that we desire a more intimate and more passionate relationship. I'm convinced that whether prior or during the time that I met Jim Femino, I call him, he doesn't like that, Dizzy Dean, Brittany Fox, in the outskirts of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that I've learned a lot of the details. I got the bang for my $50, meaning I got a heck of a deal for my $50. I've learned that when you approach somebody who is best friends of somebody that you personally resemble and have kick butt songs, and they're friends with people like Willie Nelson, chances are you are going to be the center of some sort of attention. And if they do have access to people or themselves who can invade your privacy of your home, watch you very closely now, there could be a good chance that as you create, they have found themselves a landmine filled with milk and honey. In other words, they use people as resources. You think so? I'm convinced that once an artist releases things to the public, that now it's to be expected. I would never purposely try to take from someone, but I myself can surrender to the truth that I am inspired by all living things. I would like to think that I would not purposely have electronics to invade somebody's privacy and listen closely to them. So closely that I know their bank account numbers and everything else, their passwords, the details of their life, that I would purposely inflict difficulty into their life. Well, I have learned that many of the idols of the earth, it might not be them specifically, but they're connected. Okay, because it's not justified, in my opinion, that Sammy Hagar is on the radio today. And I think Americans should acknowledge that the people who have made that song possible, whether it's producers, musicians, publishing companies, you name it, I don't feel that they should be benefiting for this generation or generations that have been neglected like myself. In other words, Sammy Hagar should never be on the radio again. He had more than enough airtime on television and on the radio. And by the way, when Sammy Hagar speaks, if you're not aware, you're falling in agreement like he knows what he's talking about, whatever he's talking about. And I have learned the hard way in life. Most of the information gathered from the television and radio is distorted in a manner that makes everything very foggy and can cause near-death experiences. It will inflict personal pain into your life, depression, right? anxieties, fear, you name it, lack of self-worth, okay? But time alone and away from all of that foolishness, and that's what it really is, foolishness, entertainment, more so or not, forms of entertainment is kind of foolish. There are other reasonings and purposes that I'm sure that we are all created for. And in my opinion, sing and dance before the Lord. My circumstance, I don't know about yours. I'm convinced that I was created to worship God. And how I worship God isn't in alignment with somebody else's idea of how I should worship God. I'm convinced that we worship God best when we're doing what? Staying focused on Jesus Christ and trusting that in doing so, living my day-to-day life, waking up, eating something, trying to move forward with the thoughts in my head, that we are worshiping our Father just by being kind to people. Not just, for some people, that's not easy because they've been hurt really bad. All right, we're getting ready to head off. And what I wanted to say is, so I was in a situation, somebody had helped me. Now, do I have to submit? What do you think? Do I need to submit to their heart's desires and be a part of a creation process of a business that maybe the longevity of it could be years, maybe for the rest of my life existence, or maybe it would be short term? To me at the time, I didn't want to be self-employed again. I am sick of being self-employed. It usually means a lot of office work and you're by yourself kind of thing. You do it all by yourself. And I was really feeling strong that God was leading me into a full-time worship leader position and music ministry. I think I'm coming closer. What do you think? Well, be honest. You can tear me apart if you want, in your comments, or you can say something kind. That's nice. I'm gonna go get a drink of coffee. I'm gonna show you some homes really quick. It just stopped raining for a little bit. I was really mad in 2012 when I came back to Ohio and started busking. And people were trying to lead me into bar rooms to play. And the one bar room I walked into, I saw a picture of Willie Nelson. And I realized that they like to use images of people rather than the actual person to present some kind of leadership of proper direction. And can I tell you, if people like David Matthews or Willie Nelson did have heart to try to minister into my life a certain pathway, niche in the music industry, back the fuck off. I don't need your help. I already know how to do it by myself. I was superior to your advice. I don't go and play bar rooms for free. I get paid to do what I do because I'm important to myself and to what God has called me into. Playing for free has never in history put food on my table. Playing for free means you surrender all of your energy and resources and can have near-death experiences. There's different reasonings and different purposes. Where you're at in life, I'm not telling you not to do things for free. We all experience different life circumstances. For me, playing for free doesn't cut it. Not at this time. If you see me playing somewhere for free, know that it's a volunteer thing that I don't want to be stuck in because I realize my personal self-worth, and that is that I should be receiving what I'm giving, Joyce Myers. I should be receiving while I'm giving. If I'm not, then I'm in a very selfish position, okay? Which is a bunch of users. If somebody comes over to mow your grass, a landscaper, you think he's going to do it for free? I'll do it for free. Hey, I'll do it for free. Well, you'll hear some people say, hey, Miss Smith, I'll do it for you for free. Hey, Miss Michael, I'll trim your hedges for you for nothing. Don't pay me nothing. Well, Miss Michael most likely would appreciate that, and Miss Michael would want to give you something. Would you like a sandwich? Would you like something to eat? Would you like, some money? You want to come with me, and I'll treat you out somewhere? to the park or whatever the deal is. In other words, it's a natural response when somebody is offering that you want to give. More so or not, I have realized in the bar business, if you work a crowd, the crowd will be kind to you. There's no doubt. You hear the pass the hat? They will be very generous to you. But can I tell you, one of my goals in my own personal life journey was to get away from beer my whole entire life. I'd rather not focus on that right now. I don't support it for many reasons. Okay, I do like a drink of wine, champagne. Okay, but I don't even do that much. I understand what alcohol has done to me and my loved ones. I personally don't want to be a strong supporter in that endeavor. I'd rather do family-oriented environments. And I don't feel that I should be arguing that fact. I've seen and witnessed that, hey, the princesses and prince of the earth, they play family-oriented venues. Why don't we see John Bon Jovi and Richie go play bar rooms? But don't do it just once to show us they can do it. Why don't they go do it for free for 10 years? Play about 250 shows a year. Do it all for free. And hey, we'll get regular updates and see how they're coming along. Okay? I already did it, and God showed me what. There are things that I've learned and appreciated in it, and there's things that it's time for a new season in life, a different season. It worked for the season it worked. I do not appreciate people trying to lead me back to the places I came out of. I have reasonings for it. Fulfilling the desires of heart does not entail going back to being a solo acoustic entertainer in a bar room. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm not saying it's bad. It's saying for Tracilyn, when you have other endeavors that you desire to do, you don't want to do what other people are telling you to do. And they need to back off. How about minding their own business endeavors? Let them promote marijuana, and all the wonderful things that it can be used for. Right, Willie? Mr. Nelson? And we don't have to promote it so much because maybe you'll someday be doing commercials for it. For acres and acres of land of marijuana. Wouldn't that be nice? You could do it with your whole family. Maybe do a video singing in a field that you're free now. Some of us have heart for certain things of the earth, and some of us have heart for various things that are similar but uniquely tailored for their heart. I believe support what's important to you. For some people it's marijuana, for some people it's getting drunk and having a blast. I've learned that alcohol, more so or not, is an avoidance of a lot of heartaches of pain. I've realized that marijuana has a lot of healing, and for some people, for me it gives me cotton mouth, and I can't focus as well, It also makes me extremely horny, so figure that out. And it also, smoking marijuana, Willie Nelson, when on Las Vegas Bridge, given to me by a stranger, almost took my life. What do you think of that? Old timer. Funny, I met a Bret Michaels look-alike. Was it days prior to that? Interesting. Not to mention, when I first walked in town, I heard Bret Michaels got a home in Las Vegas. He relocated. That was back in 2012. And the last day I was there, I stood on the bridge where I almost died. Very interesting story when you add up everything. Am I assuming? No. Facts. So check this out. We're going to show you some homes. I hope I have enough time to do that with this camera. If not, we're going to have to delete the first internal memory drive of this camera, and we'll finish it up. I've learned that people like Miley Cyrus, believe it or not, it might not be them directly, but there are people that are tied to Willie Nelson. I know this because I met somebody in Derby, New York. Willie Nelson's crew, film crew, and personal friends had showed up at the house, and I really thought they were really nice people. I have nothing bad to say about them. It's about what happened and what was conversated over by the gentleman. That maybe that's why Willie Nelson wasn't there. Maybe he doesn't really care for him that much. Whatever the deal is, I was convinced that there was more than what was suspected in the house next door, setting up to stalk me via satellite, to monitor me. So with that being said, I've learned that these things were true in 2012. What I'm getting at with Miley Cyrus is when you're hip with what's going on today, you're writing songs about it. You're sharing your life story about it. Being things like, if you're hearing people in mainstream like Lady Gaga, Madonna, Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, Bon Jovi, people in rap or in hip-hop or in country music like Toby Keith or anybody in that realms, anybody within those realms like you hear on the radio, my question is, are they talking dominantly about being bullied? Are they dominantly talking about transgender topics? Are they dominantly talking about the things that I shared on my YouTube page? Because I was disconnected from mainstream media. And the funny thing is, I've learned while I was in Las Vegas doing a video series that things like Miley Cyrus dancing in a diaper on television, certain things that I've done, like my Nebraska song, Nebraska movie about the mentalness. Check it out. Look at the trailer. I don't want to go into the details of what the movie's about. I watched it. It was really dull. I should have been a movie director and writer, screenwriter. I could, really exciting stuff. The thing is they utilize all their resources for conditioning the mental status and directing the mental status to their desires. What they want out of humanity, that's what they use all this stuff for. That's what songwriters write and all of that. And most of it in entertainment, a lot of it is distraction and an illusion of BS, that this is basically how you should feel about your life, purposes and stuff like that. And I'm here to tell you, the real recording artists, the real Miley Cyruses of the earth, Taylor Swift's, Donald Trump's, Joyce Meyer's, Joel Osteen, they're in the human race, and they could do a much better job at surrendering to being a definite, more in alignment with the spirit of truth if they would only pick up a Holy Bible and read it. Get a support group, an emotional support group, because you're going to need it. And start living your life and take back the places that belong to the real people of royalty of this earth, who unfortunately might be living in roach-infested motels. They might be living infested with lice covered on the beach, right? They may be a wino laying on a park bench and a cop just grabbed them by the neck and said, "You're going to prison," okay? It may be an escort who's acknowledged she's being stalked, watched via satellite, and cops are setting them up, making their life more difficult. You're out there, and let me tell you something, it is challenging, because you're going to have to defy the whole mind thought process that you have been installed with. It's like the entertainment industry and the people being used are installing a software program into your head. Guess what? Is that your Windows? Is that how you function? Is it a software program that can be removed from your hard drive, which is your brain, and a new one be installed, which is more in alignment with why God created you to begin with? Some people say it's a part 2 series, meaning you go through a season of life, you form your definite of who you are, and then you read the Bible. That definite begins to soften so it can be opened, and then alterations begin. And the new you becomes, and now that can form. What do you think? This is crazy stuff, isn't it? I could talk for eternity. I'm not saying everybody would appreciate every word that comes out of my mouth. I personally wanted to stay focused on my music in good times. And Emily was a big part of those good times during some of the hardest times of my life. Thank you, Emily. We're going to go through the neighborhood, check out some houses that are for sale, and I want to give you a quick talking. While I was on the streets, busking, people were buzzing around, which gave me the acknowledged I'm being watched. There's probably a chip inside of me. They can hear me talk in the privacy of my home. They know everything. Okay. Now, why am I still alive? Knowing that I'm not afraid to speak about it? I don't know. I don't know what their whole agenda is. Years ago, they used to lock people like me up in mental institution and mentally torture them, is what they used to. And pump them full of medication that was destroying their bodies. Notice the mental institutions aren't here anymore. They're going away. There's only a few. It would be wise to investigate them to make sure that they're not being abused. Somebody, there's a position for you. You don't have to be without a job. Do you care about people who are being mentally abused? Then acknowledge to the state you live in of a mental hospital and declare, I'm going to be the one that's there seeing to it that they're watched and cared for. Chances are they need a tweaking and they can be released. Most of the mental doctors that I met, most of them couldn't do the things that I've learned to do for myself, okay? And I gotta say, as I went through life, it's appeared to me that more of the sinful nature of I don't care, you did it to yourself was occurring. When now I did it to myself, it's called repair. I repaired my own mind by talking to myself, trying to figure things out. I went through the very beginning, first day of my life, all the way up to now. Not just once, twice. I listen to myself talk now in my videos and I get mad. Why, Tracilyn? Why? This is not the way that life was meant to be. Exactly. But maybe it was to make me who I am today. And maybe there's some people of the earth that need somebody like me in their life to tell them the way it is, because they think they're untouchable or they're unstoppable. Maybe these are the people that are going to be incarcerated. And maybe instead of them trying to inflict death upon the lives of other people, maybe they're the ones who are going to receive that death tenfold over. Very disturbing. Emily, after speaking with you, I will not reveal anything in your current private life, but I will tell you from observation, listening to you speak, you are being targeted like I am, okay? Stay strong, stay firm, stay connected with other people. Don't be afraid to talk to the people. It's time that people understand we are in mental warfare. People have technology to alter thoughts, to give you a false artificial acknowledgement of life, a perception. They try to take each word or sentence or occurrence that you witness and manipulate your thought process into believing the worst of things. In other words, they try to remove the spirit of joy, happiness, contentment from your life. This is Jesus Christ. It's already inside of you. They seek to kill Jesus, not the human. They know without Jesus Christ, there is no real life. Jesus is already inside of you, whether you believe it or not. All living things come from the Spirit of God, of love, life eternal. You don't believe me about the satellite, by the way? Watch some of my videos on Facebook. Watch my You Are Holy video and see the white light go across my chin. It's a laser light. I pause it. If you pause it, you'll see 3 lights. I thought there was just 2. There's 3. There's probably one to transfer data, one to visually watch you with a camera on a computer screen, and who knows what the other one's for. But I'm convinced that the symptoms of depression, major depression, bipolar, personality disorder, severe anger outburst, this can all be inflicted by the ability they have via satellite to get into your brain. Neurology disorders. I'm convinced, in a manner, that neurology disorders, I don't want to say they're not real, but there's a big portion of me after going through what I'm going through that would tell me there's a slight chance, actually there's a large chance, that all neurology disorders are probably inflicted by people who have technology to inflict it upon the human race. Consider, especially if there's a chip inside of you, how easy it would be to be able to play with your body and your thought process into believing this is wrong with you or that is wrong with you. You feel an electrical current going through your body? Well, if you have a chip in you and there's a laser via satellite that you can't see with the eye, and it's beaming at you, it could make it feel, well, there's electrical something going on here. What do we do about this as a society? I met one of the people, and I can't believe that our government, right, the American government, it's not my government, it's not really our government, it's a form of people who maybe take the title government, but the real government is all living things. Some would say it's the life and death, meaning it's all things, the entire planet, everything on it and contained within and beyond is the government, the real government. People in positions that take leadership positions should only be in leadership positions if they are in favor of life. If they are in movements of things that are not favorable towards the human race of life, of all living things of life, including water, food, you name it, housing. I mean, it goes, how many details can we go? The bottom line is, they need to step down from their position, and other people that God reveals needs to stand in the place. Or maybe a new place is forming, right? Not a new government, but maybe new leadership positions are being formed. Not to battle what's already there, not to unite with them, but to do your own thing, okay? Speak freely, speak in love, okay? People will try to scare you away from this, and you will get sure signs when they walk around you telling you little subtle hints, maybe being a news reporter. They like to try to throw a prediction of how your life is going to be. Don't fall in agreement with it. It's weak. They try to intimidate and scare people away from being in existence. In my situation, if people in the music industry wouldn't have kept shunning me, right, we won't mention no names, maybe I would not have come close to death many times. Maybe I wouldn't have been living in hotels, letting people suck my penis so I could stay alive another day. Well, I'm sure they'd like to hear this story, Tracilyn. You did it to yourself, they would say. I think it's kind of funny, wouldn't they say that? Well, what I think is funny is that I understand that God is the promoter, and they're not God. And I get the awesomeness of sharing my life testimony for eternity about the occurrences that actually happened in my life, and the understanding of the parties that were involved, most likely that had something to do with the torment. Pretty exciting stuff. Got a great position, don't I? I also heard, not only with the diaper thing with Miley Cyrus, I also heard, I don't know if it's real or not, but in New York there was a transgendered, sort of, I guess it's a ministry of some sort, housing and stuff for use. And can I tell you, I heard that Miley Cyrus was tied in with all of that. And can I tell you that no matter who it is, if it's being done in promotion of life, this is marvelous. However, it's another testimony of how miraculously Tracilyn was also speaking of the importance, but not knowing the answers. And more so or not, in the entertainment industry, people try to bring the glory into iconic symbols in America of some kind of movement or occurrence of things that are happening, just like Elvis Presley was used years ago. And don't ever think, and I realize this, don't ever think that Elvis Presley and Elvis Enterprise in general, maybe not him, but maybe him, used and abused, and that many people did not have to go through the pain and suffering, but were being used as resources to bring the glory into the presence of Elvis so that they could dominate and navigate people's way of thinking. Don't fall in agreement with man. Please drop listening to others for a moment of time in your life. Disconnect from mainstream entertainment and their music unless you really feel that you need it in your life to stay alive. Wherever you are, whatever you do, pick up the Bible. You don't want to look to another man for advice, for approval. You want to be the person God has created and called you to be. And I'm telling you, I'm convinced that the only way we know this is if we surrender to Jesus Christ. We lack the knowledge that is necessary in the steps of acknowledging that when we live in the fruits like Jesus Christ, we best glorify all of existence. And it's really, truly, I'm convinced if anybody ever said to you there's more than one way into heaven, I'm here to tell you heaven is all over the place. It's everywhere. But we can't really acknowledge it until we get center focused on our own name that God gives us. God, honesty, the name that we will live by, surrender to, and love and cherish. Honor. Let me tell you something. Anybody who's concerned about image, know that God was not created in an image. Every word. Amazing. Powerful. And by staying focused on your own name, doesn't mean not loving others. Love others. Love in the name of Jesus. Love people because you desire to be more Christ-like. Once you start to become more Christ-like, you acknowledge it's actually not uncool to be Christ-like. It's a wonderful, marvelous feeling, a joy. Make sure you're somewhere safe, because the more Christ-like you become, you're going to be more like a child, an infant even, a baby. The real joy of life could possibly take you there for a visit to remind you innocence before all the life occurrences, right? Some of us even started then. Let's get started with this. I do not aim to tear anybody down. I'm trying to heal and get this out of my system because Dayton, Ohio, for me, I'm having closure. I feel it's time for me to move on to Columbus. I would have liked the things to work out differently here in Dayton. They did not. They worked out like they did, so can I ask you to offer me words of encouragement? I spent a decade, invested a decade, rather than not having any place to go, rather than jumping off the bridge, this is where I came. Yet I still find myself disturbed that things ended up the way they did. I don't want to be stuck in a mental block for the rest of my life. And people, like I mentioned, these rock star bands, whatever the heck they are, or classify themselves as people, I don't want to give them any more energy for the rest of my life. I don't like them, and I'd rather stay away from that. And I don't want that to give me any kind of lack of the spirit sensations. Right now, my biggest disturbance is I'm convinced that I have what it takes to survive and thrive and stay alive. What I'm really sick of is being electronically harassed, living in a country that I don't know what to do about this. Where do I report it in? I can take you to the guy's house that he lived there in 2010. Why don't I know what to do about this? Why isn't this man incarcerated? Huge question mark. I don't want to be talking about him 8 years later. Who does? The things that these people think that I wanted, I did not want, all right? It took me all these years to figure things out myself. So if you pray, would you mind praying for clarity in the life of Tracilyn, for closure and peace in any heart pains, disappointments? That would mean a lot to me. You don't have to tell me. If you can't pray, then how about if you ask someone else? Because I realize when people are listening to you, when you speak, they can either be for you or they can be very much so against you, and they will try to trick you into believing that this is the prayer that God wants for you, the master of confusion. I think I met somebody who's one of the parties of that. All right, here we go. Love you. New battery and a walkthrough. Some coffee. Love Tracilyn back because she's the nicest person I ever met in this lifetime on YouTube. It's my new jingle. Okay, how is it going? Windy out there. Now listen, I'm here at a house that's for sale in Huber Heights. And throughout Huber Heights, as I show the camera, I'm not going to try not to show it directly on people's homes, but there is a lot of little tiny homes, which in my opinion, when I was listening to Emily speak, I was thinking even smaller than this. You know, they have those tiny houses. And then I was thinking, do they have to be that tiny? You know, questions and different thoughts come through your head. Do you want an apartment building? Do you want a whole bunch of houses on a property? Do you want your own community formed? Which is what Emily was talking about, but she didn't necessarily reveal all the details to me, which is good. You know, they should be with her unless she wants to speak about them. With that being said, Huber Heights has a lot of small homes, maybe for 1 or 2 people to live in my opinion. We're going to show you one that is for sale here. Okay, now understand, I'm going to show you the neighborhood I lived in at the time again and explain what I was thinking while looking out the window and meditating on this rock and roll ministry and my own purpose in life. If I can't get a job working for somebody where I could establish the freedom to some form of freedom, so that way I can actually put my life together in alignment with the thought process, which I didn't even know this is my heaven. Teachers of the Christian faith, why don't I know up until I have figured out on my own in my 40s that this is my heaven? Why are you holding this information from me? Shame on all of you, especially the church up in Chicago. It's not funny, and I would tell you that to your face. All the elders of the church, the overseers, you haven't done a very good job at acknowledging to the people that this is where heaven starts, okay? With that being said, I'm going to show you some of my thoughts right now, and this is good news.